Golden Black Live, Kyle Charters along with Brian Newbert to talk a little bit of basketball after Purdue gets a victory on Thursday night by a final of 87-70 against Michigan. Brian, Raphael Davis called it must win. Was it must win?
You know, it's so easy to say it was a must win after you've won, but when you look at it like, is Purdue capable of responding to situations like the one they encountered against Iowa? You really wanted to see them do that. You didn't want to see this team hit hard times and stay down. And I thought it was an important response for them last night, considering all the disappointment from that Iowa game. So in the big picture, no, I don't think it was a must-win. In the smaller macro level picture, I think it absolutely was a situation where they had to play well, they had to have some success.
If you have any questions for us regarding basketball or anything
Whatever
else, Brian knows some recipes, I think, perhaps. We can try and get to those in this segment. Thanks to our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, XXX Family Restaurants, and Basham Rentals. The seniors played well. I mean, I think in games like that where you're coming off, sort of an epic meltdown in the second half, I don't think it's too much to say that. I mean, they melted down.
That's a kind way to put it.
They melted down pretty good
Yeah.
against the Hawkeyes. You want guys who are your seniors, your leaders, to step up into bigger roles, and those three guys did that. A.J. Hammonds, Johnny Hill, and Ray. They played well.
Yeah.
You need them in those situations.
Well, I thought almost the whole team played well. The one guy maybe who didn't play as well was obviously the freshman. Caleb Swanigan had some struggles against a very difficult matchup schematically. But you're absolutely right about the seniors. I thought yesterday was an important, if not predictable, response by Raphael Davis. He's a very proud dude. You don't just go out on the floor and say, I'm going to decide to score 16 points. It's not that easy, but I thought he played very well. He played with a lot of passion. He obviously did his job defensively and then some. A.J. Hammonds just played like A.J. Hammonds is playing. He's playing like a top 10 level prospect right now. He's not going to get drafted in the top 10 for a lot of reasons, but he's playing like that caliber of prospect. Johnny Hill, I thought, played his best game at Purdue, or his best stretch of basketball in that second half, closing that game off for Purdue. Made really good decisions with the basketball, made really timely, good, solid basketball plays, a couple of energy plays that really mattered. So it really started with the seniors. It really was everybody. It was all the experienced guys.
Was it an interesting game, too, because, Purdue wins by 17. They score 87 points. But the first 10 minutes of that game, you're sitting there thinking to yourself, this is going to be the same grind that we've seen for the last 4 or 5 games where, they're struggling to score, they're struggling to get the ball inside without turning it over, and then all of a sudden everything starts to come together. What do you think it is that they're doing during those moments correctly that's getting them going?
I thought when they take care of the basketball, they're good. Yeah. When they take good shots, they're good. When they just play to the model that's being applied to them, generally they're pretty good as long as they do what they need to do offensively, and they're pretty sound on defense. I know that's a lot of ifs, but I thought yesterday in the first half they just needed somebody to be a spark, and I thought Vince Edwards really kind of provided that spark. A.J. Hammonds made a nice pass to him for a dunk. Then Edwards got another basket, but on top of that, those were the first 4 points of that 12-0 run. But then Edwards assisted on Raphael Davis' three-point play, I think after a rebound, and then he assisted on P.J. Thompson's three-pointer. So Purdue's wanted him to be more aggressive.
Yeah.
I think he was, but he made good decisions doing it. And I thought it was that stretch right there where he subbed in at the 4, made those plays that really kind of swung the game in Purdue's favor.
I was just saying yesterday before the game that it's in those moments where they're struggling a little bit offensively that I'd like to see Vince maybe try to do some things, whether it's, go one-on-one to try and get an opportunity for himself or to set things up. Because, if there's something Purdue's missing offensively, aside from maybe more consistent perimeter shooting, they have guys who are capable but aren't always hitting them regularly. It's a guy who can go get his own shot. And maybe Edwards is the closest to being able to do so.
Yeah, it's a lot harder now, I think. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. It's a different challenge now for Edwards to go get his own shot against threes as opposed to fours, because he always had kind of a mobility advantage. I think it's a more difficult one-on-one matchup for him offensively. Obviously, the guy whose hands you want the ball in when you need a basket is A.J. Hammonds right now. But obviously there's a process involved with getting the ball inside. When you can't do that and you need somebody to generate offense, Vince Edwards is probably the most equipped guy because he's so skilled. So I think when he's aggressive, but also smart in picking his opportunities. And that's a really fine line. When you're saying we need this player to be aggressive, but then we're saying our players can't be over-aggressive because we need the ball inside, that's a pretty fine line to walk. It seems like Edwards, for a while there, was blending in, but I thought that he had a really good game yesterday and was this close to having a great game.
Let's talk the one guy who, as you said, didn't have as good a game, the freshman Caleb Swanigan. He's a talented guy, no doubt. I mean, we've seen it throughout most of the year. Has hit a little bit of a roadblock, which is not uncommon to first-year players, certainly. Purdue's going to leave him out there because ultimately the positive's going to outweigh the negative. He does struggle, though, in some defensive matchups, right?
I thought yesterday was largely matchup-based. At the defensive end, when teams can spread people out and put 4 perimeter guys on the floor, he's really going to struggle oftentimes with that. Purdue wasn't able to flip that matchup all that much and score on, when he had Anthony Clemens on him. But I thought they had some opportunities yesterday. I just think he's overeager sometimes on offense. He wants to make plays. He wants to be great because he knows what he's capable of. Everybody knows what he's capable of. But the positives, for the most part, do outweigh the struggles he's going to experience. Last night, I did not think they did. I thought Purdue was better, quite frankly, with him out of the game. And I didn't think I'd see a situation like that all year where that was true. But it's going to be a process for him. He has to understand the Big Ten is not the same as non-conference. He could do a lot of what he wanted to do in non-conference, and even then he struggled with turnovers and overeagerness and whatnot. But it's going to be a process for him. The coaching is better, the scouting is better, the players are better in the Big Ten. He's going to have to learn to adjust. The important part for Purdue is for him, to learn from this, because what happens now is one thing. What happens later is an entirely other thing. If this is going to work for Purdue, it has to work in February when you're playing for a Big Ten title.
Yeah.
If things go as planned, and in March when you're in the NCAA tournament. If Purdue can have him up and running at full capacity by then, and this whole big lineup model can be fully optimized by then, that's the goal. If it costs you a game now, so be it. If it makes you better in the long run. But he's going to have to, obviously has to get more comfortable, has to get better.
There were a couple lineup changes. A.J. Hammonds was in there. Johnny Hill was in the starting lineup. Raphael Davis still started, even though many fans wanted him banished to the end of the bench for some reason. But the Hammonds one seemed inevitable that it was going to happen at some point. As you joked in your blog, it cost him the Sixth Player of the Year award, now probably in the Big Ten. But those seem to spark them a little bit. Right? I mean, Hammonds is playing so well.
Hammonds is Hammonds. It doesn't matter if he's starting or coming off the bench. He might be the best center in the country right now. The Johnny Hill thing, I think that's going to be kind of a yin and yang. Is it yin and yang? I think it's going to be a compliment all year. That's going to be a two-headed point guard. Some games P.J. Thompson's going to play better. Some games Johnny Hill's going to play better. Outside of one bad decision at the end of the first half, I thought P.J. Thompson played pretty well. Made a couple of big shots. I thought Johnny Hill played his best game, like I said before, in that second half. So I don't think any one game is going to say, okay, this is their point guard situation all year. I don't think it's ever going to get to a situation where one of those guys is playing 30 minutes and the other one's playing 10. I do think you might see Dakota Mathias more at point guard because Purdue operates better with him on the floor as a passer, as a decision maker, and you have to steal him minutes because you have too many wings right now, and you can't get them enough minutes. You can't get them in the rhythms because you're playing too many guys. And if you can get him 5-6 minutes a game at point guard, perhaps that helps the whole thing in the big picture.
We'll answer your questions on the show. We do have one. It's about recruiting. We'll hit some recruiting talk in segment 3. We'll do that in just a moment. So if you have any others for us, go ahead and pour those in. We'll try to answer them as best we can. So Illinois is up next on the road on Sunday. Illinois struggling a little bit, but probably not a place where you really anywhere in the Big Ten you don't feel completely comfortable going on the road and winning. But what do you think of the Illini? Rutgers. Rutgers is. I watched a little of that Rutgers Maryland game the other night. I know the Terps are good, but
Scarlet Knights not so much.
No,
I hate to make fun of my home states.
48.
College.
I think they were down 48-15 at the half, something like that.
It's not good.
No, not good.
That's bad basketball.
Illinois.
They're struggling. They're absolutely decimated. Obviously, they have no size to speak of. They have some very talented guards. Malcolm Hill's an excellent player. I think he was leading the Big Ten in scoring there for a while. I don't know who he's right now. I haven't checked lately. But they have some skilled guards. They're going to try to pressure Purdue, I'd imagine. That's your only hope. You remember they turned the game on Purdue a little bit at the end of the first half in Champaign last year when they turned up the pressure a little bit. P.J. Thompson, as a freshman, didn't handle it very well then. So Purdue's going to have to be ready for some pressure in Champaign. If they can get the ball in the half court, if they can dictate the terms of play, they should be fine because this Illinois team just doesn't have the bodies it was planning on having. LeRon Black is out, Mike Thorne is out. Their only big guy, quite honestly. Their point guard situation's a mess because of injuries and whatnot. So if Purdue can just handle pressure and establish its advantages and leverage them to some extent, you would think they'll be fine, and at some point in time, Illinois will probably wear down from having to wrestle with their size.
Handling the pressure, though, is still a little bit of a question, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Iowa did it.
I watched the Iowa game, didn't you?
Yeah. Iowa did it effectively, and even even Michigan last night. I thought when they went to the half court trap, there was a couple of moments there that I thought
There's some uncertainty.
Yeah, Purdue's not handling this as well as you. Now, I think they worked it out a little bit, but against that pressure, Purdue has shown some vulnerability.
Yeah. See, I don't know if it's the pressure per se as much as it is the larger issue of just Purdue's kind of inexplicable penchant for lapsing its in poise, where sometimes it just loses its head and doesn't play calm and collected. You combine that with the pressure, and obviously that created the perfect storm against Iowa. Because when they played Florida, they did great. They scored 85 points on Florida's pressure.
Yeah.
And that's worse pressure than what Iowa did. Against Iowa, you go back and watch the film, they did nothing different after halftime than they did in the first half. Maybe they ramped up their pressure in the half court a little bit more, jump passing lanes a little harder and whatnot, but systematically there was nothing different. That was on Purdue. They just lost their minds, like they lost their minds a little bit against Butler. They lost their minds a little bit in the first half against Vanderbilt, first half against Wisconsin. And when Purdue doesn't play with poise, Purdue turns the ball over and the whole thing snowballs on them. So regardless of what the opponent does, if Purdue keeps its poise, it's going to stand a much better chance of being successful.
Well, we're going to take a break. We'll come back, talk a little bit more basketball, maybe some recruiting as well. Perhaps we'll get a little reaction from Terry Malone and what he had to say about the offense. Bunch of everything in segment 3. You got anything else you want to hit?
I don't have any recipes for you.
No recipes.
Although I did make scrambled eggs for my wife. She said they were good. She had her wisdom teeth out.
We've always wanted to turn one. That doesn't sound fun. We always wanted to turn one segment into a cooking show. Maybe
I got some song lyrics I can read off later.
Maybe we'll do that. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back in just a moment. This is Golden Black Live.